It was September 16, 1994, at Ariel School in Zimbabwe. During morning break, dozens of children suddenly ran toward the edge of the playground. Something strange had appeared beyond the field, and what they claimed to see next would haunt the world for decades. The children pointed toward a silver object near the trees. Some said it looked like a craft. Then they noticed strange, dark figures nearby. The children became frightened, but many continued watching. What happened next would become even stranger. According to the children, the figures appeared near the trees after they noticed the object. Some described them as small, dark-haired beings with unusually large eyes. The children said the figures seemed to watch them silently. No one could prove what the children had seen, and their descriptions were later debated by investigators. But something made the story even more unusual. Different children were interviewed separately, yet many of them continued describing similar details. And then the adults began asking the question that would make this case famous. Why did so many children say they had seen the same strange thing? When the adults reached the playground, the children were already talking excitedly about what they had seen. Some pointed toward the trees, while others tried to describe the strange figures. The teachers could not see anything unusual themselves. The object was gone, and the field looked completely normal. But the children's reactions were difficult to ignore. Soon, the story spread through the school, and before long, an important question emerged. Could dozens of children really have imagined the same impossible scene? As teachers began speaking with the children, something unexpected emerged. The children were not all describing the event in exactly the same way, but many mentioned similar details. They talked about a strange object, unusual figures, and a powerful feeling that something was watching them. Some children even claimed they had received a strange message or impression from the beings. The adults were left with more questions than answers. Then word reached a journalist who had investigated unusual encounters around the world. His name was John Mack, and when he heard what had happened at Ariel School, he decided to find out for himself. John Mack was a Harvard psychiatrist, known for studying people who claimed unusual encounters. When he learned about the Ariel School incident, he traveled to Zimbabwe and interviewed the children himself. He did not simply ask, "Did you see aliens?" Instead, he listened carefully and asked them to describe what happened in their own words. Some children drew pictures of the figures and the object they remembered. Their drawings contained surprisingly similar details. But Mack faced a difficult question. Were the children describing something they had genuinely experienced, or had their memories influenced one another after the event? Then came one of the strangest details. Several children were asked to draw what they remembered, without being given pictures or descriptions from others. Their drawings showed unusual figures with dark bodies and large eyes, along with a strange object near the trees. The similarities caught investigators' attention, but the mystery was only beginning. Some children later described another unusual detail. They said the figures seemed to communicate without speaking, as if the message came directly into their minds. According to their accounts, the message was connected to the environment and humanity's future. But this was never independently verified, and investigators could not prove that any communication had actually occurred. Still, the children remained remarkably confident about what they remembered, and as more interviews were conducted, one question became impossible to ignore. Why did this story stay so consistent years later? As the investigation continued, the story became harder to dismiss, but also harder to prove. Different children remembered different details, and not every account matched perfectly. Some described the figures as standing near the trees, while others focused more on the strange object. Investigators also considered ordinary explanations, including misunderstanding, suggestion, and the way children's memories can change after a frightening event. Yet many of the children continued to insist that something unusual had happened that morning. And then, one detail caught even more attention. Some children claimed the figures had looked directly at them. Some children focused on one detail more than anything else: the figures' eyes. They described them as unusually large and dark, making the beings seem completely different from ordinary people. A few children said the figures appeared to move strangely or communicate without words, but investigators never found physical evidence proving that these beings had actually been there. The case remained based almost entirely on eyewitness accounts, and as the interviews continued, another disturbing possibility emerged. What if the children had experienced something they could not understand? The children were not the only people connected to the story. Teachers later remembered that many students had rushed toward the same area during break, excited and frightened by something they believed they had seen. But the adults themselves did not report seeing the strange figures. That difference became important. If the event was real, why could the children see something that the adults could not? And if it was a misunderstanding, why did so many children continue describing unusual details long after that morning had ended? The mystery was becoming deeper, not clearer. Years passed, but the Ariel school story never completely disappeared. Some of the children, now adults, continued to remember the event and stood by their original accounts. Others became more uncertain about exactly what they had seen. Researchers returned to the case because the number of witnesses made it unusual. Yet there was still no physical evidence, no confirmed craft, and no independent proof that the strange figures were real. The mystery survived because the witnesses remembered something extraordinary. But what exactly happened that morning remains unanswered. Decades later, the Ariel school encounter is still discussed by UFO researchers, skeptics, and the people who were there. Some believe the children witnessed something extraordinary. Others believe the event may have been shaped by suggestion, memory, or an ordinary object, misunderstood by frightened children. No physical evidence has ever confirmed an extraterrestrial encounter. But there is one detail that keeps the story alive. Dozens of children independently remembered seeing something unusual that morning. So if they were mistaken, what exactly did they see? The Ariel school encounter never received a definitive explanation. There was no recovered spacecraft, no physical trace, and no independent evidence proving that extraterrestrial beings had visited the school. Yet many of the children continued to describe the experience in remarkably vivid ways years later. Skeptics questioned the memories, while believers saw the number of witnesses as powerful evidence. Somewhere between those two possibilities lies the unanswered mystery. One ordinary school morning had become a story that refused to disappear. But there was still one final question left. What really happened at Ariel school that day? September 16, 1994 ended like an ordinary school day, but the story of Ariel school never became ordinary. Dozens of children said they had seen something strange near the field, yet no physical evidence ever proved what it was. Some still believe they witnessed something beyond our understanding. Others believe memory, suggestion, or an ordinary event created a mystery that grew over time. The truth remains unknown, and perhaps that is what makes Ariel school so unsettling. If those children were mistaken, what did so many of them see,